just last week.
Hi, hi everybody. It's Debbie from Spooky Things. Um, how are you doing tonight, Mr. Lopez?
I'm excellent. I'm excellent. I hope all is well with you.
It is. Everybody, I'd like you to meet Mr. George Lopez. Um, he has a radio podcast show as well called Dead Air Paranormal. Um, it's fascinating. You've done some fascinating things.
I really kind of enjoy the discoveries in this field. I think they're never ending, and so yeah, I try to get out there as much as I can and keep up with the young kids and what they're doing, and some of us veterans also. It's always something that has intrigued me and will continue to do so.
I agree with you. It's like in this field, every day's a new adventure. You have no idea what's right around the corner. And every time you think, ah, I've seen it all. I've heard it all. You haven't.
No,
It's just
no such thing. No
right.
such thing in this. Yeah.
No
Every
such
time
thing.
when you think you got the answers, the spirits change the questions.
Exactly. You're actually from my neck of the woods down there.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a homestead girl.
Oh, you're all the way south. You're just before the Keys. My goodness.
Well, I lived in Homestead. Homestead was like my home port, so to speak, 33 years.
So you were
And
down there for Hurricane Andrew.
smack dab in the middle of it.
God bless you.
Oh, you want to hear a good one? I moved away from Homestead. One of the main reasons that I wanted to move away was that I was tired of being in the middle of hurricanes all the time.
Yeah.
So I moved up here and Michael came. So all my friends told me I brought it with me.
Oh yes, yes, of course.
Oh, I probably did. So I don't know. So now I've made my mind up that the next time some one of those things comes through, I'm just packing up my RV and I'm taking off. I'm not dealing with it anymore.
I'd try Alaska. I don't think they get many hurricanes.
Yeah, but it's too much snow.
You gotta, lesser of two evils. At least you know that's
Yeah,
coming.
well, that's true. That's true. But they also have polar bears, and I don't know. I'll take these little black bears up here over the polar bears anytime.
Damn nature gets you every time.
I know you just can't win. It's like the paranormal. Every time you turn around, like the weather here lately. We were just talking. Yeah, what the heck's going on with that? I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. So I want to know what's going on with George these days. What you got coming up?
Oh, it's very, very little. As we were talking a little bit just before the show, I've had to become the primary caregiver for my soon-to-be 90-year-old father, and
Oh,
he's had a couple of bad falls over the last couple of years, and the rehab when you get to be that age is long and painful. This last fall resulted in four fractured vertebrae, triple fracture of the right
oh
pelvis, and
no.
hematoma. And tough son of a gun, a veteran of the Korean War, bounced back. So he's doing much, much better. But it is a 24-hour, 7-day a week job, to say the least.
Oh, yes.
But we keep pushing away and pushing on with our Dead Air show on Sunday nights with myself and Ken DaCosta from Rise of Paranormal. We do that every Sunday at 8 p.m. And it's still a chance for me to keep entwined with the paranormal community because I can't physically do it like I used to now. But someday, somehow, some way, I'll get back into it as well. I mean, it's a running joke for the longest time. You know, my good friend Andrea Perrin, and we're co-authors on a book. And the funny part of it is that open for how many years now, the Conjuring House, and I've yet to step foot inside the farmhouse yet. Um, so
Really?
some way I'll get a chance to get up there. Yeah, yeah, and it is interesting because when it was still uh, owned by and Norma Sutcliffe was the owner before the current owner and the owner before that, and we John Zaffis was driving. I was in the passenger seat. Andrea was sitting in the back, and all we did was just drive by the house. No one was permitted on the property at that time, and as we're getting to the crest of the hill, all of a sudden, this voice, a child's voice, repeatedly going through my head, I don't want to go back. 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 And my anxiety
Oh,
just went through the roof. And I really don't have anxiety, but it's something was connecting there. So I've been always fascinated for the attempt and opportunity to step foot into that place. Someday I will.
oh yeah. That would be amazing. I think that to me would
Yeah.
probably be one of the ultimate places to go would be there. Um,
Yeah.
s- there's definitely the place of so much history. Um, and, and and I think what it is that a lot of people just refer to it in the context of being the Conjuring House, but families grew up there, and there's so much family history as well involved into that home, and people good as well as bad. But I mean, Andrea had a wonderful family, has a wonderful family and many, many, many good memories
Yeah.
also
Absolutely.
involved into that home.
Correct.
And everybody just looks at that home like, oh, it's the Conjuring House,
Well,
a place I would definitely want to go into. But I mean, this is her family home.
I think about
So,
how many historically haunted locations or super haunts just in the United States that come attached to a $500 million motion picture. It's the only one, and which is again why
right?
from a sales perspective, calling it the Conjuring House rather than calling it the house on Round Top Road or calling it the farmhouse in Harrisville. It's a marketing uh, perspective, and that's really whether you're the homeowners or you're trying to sell tickets to go there, you're trying to get a group to go there. Where are we going? We're going to the farmhouse. What the Conjuring House? Oh yes, let's go. It's marketing, and it's a smart move for anybody that's trying to grab again, those dollar bills that are out there in mass. I mean, when Norma Sutcliffe was still owning the places when The Conjuring came out, and they were trespassers galore coming onto that property because it was that house or that farmhouse. Um, but it has evolved considerably over the last 6 or 7 years, with the Hineses being there and now Joe, what can't remember her name, Joanna, I want to say, the current,
Are you
uh,
there,
yeah, can you see me? Debbie,
Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
you getting some Wi-Fi issues?
I don't know what's going on.
Maybe because we're talking about the Conjuring House. No,
That's weird because I got to tell you that was a little bit weird there. But
but I was saying it was there's a dynamic shift with the stories and with the energies within the place. You still have, and this is what makes me and Ken notorious in the field. We come onto the show and talk about this all the time. The younger streamers that are out there, the ones that create content, and if
Hmm.
they want to get views and likes and subscriptions, they are absolutely going to do their best when they film at the Conjuring House. So it's going to be evil. It's going to be dark. It's going to be attacks. And in the all reality of it, everyone else that goes there, as they get introduced to the staff, they get introduced to the home. Simply is, hey, there were families that lived here, and a lot of what
Right.
you heard, read, or saw in The Conjuring really didn't transpire. Such as Bathsheba
Right.
not really being somebody who was a baby killer, all that, but it made for good, scary campfire stories. So
Right.
that's slowly being pushed aside, and more so being there's still amazing amounts of activity in this location, and so the opportunity for anyone to go in there with a vivid imagination or not, it's still an amazing experience and great conversation for the future with people to say that you've been there.
Absolutely. I mean, just being at the site itself
Right.
is, to me, historical. It's an amazing, it's an amazing piece of property. Um, I know I would be thrilled to be able to just to be there and to see it for myself, and it's amazing. And I've spoken to several people as well, and I think it's, I mean, you know, the movies are very entertaining. They're very scary. They do what they're set out to do, and um, and that's to scare the bejeebies out of people. Therefore, making it quite successful.
I
But
never noticed before. I'm looking in my background, and it looks like there's a green skeleton behind my plant. Just the way that it's shaped right now. You see the two eyes and
yeah,
the skull nose right there,
yeah,
like peeking over the plant like this. I just noticed that. Ah,
what,
crazy.
what's going on with this tonight?
Sorry, Conjuring House. Didn't
Exactly
mean
what we're talking about.
a little bit of pareidolia. You never hurt anybody.
We're just talking about this. Now I'm wondering what's going on behind me. Oh my god!
Well, well,
But
you're okay. I'm the one that's got
yeah,
weird
there.
stuff.
Well, you're the one that's got the skull back there. It's the whole thing.
The weird part is I don't see it
What is
here.
back there anyway?
Right there. Nose,
No, no,
and head.
yeah, yeah.
But
But when you look at it up close, I see a plant.
there we go. There
But
we go. All right. So one of the leaves makes up the eyes. Debunked. Debunked. We're good.
yes, it does.
Okay, moving on.
Oh, that was great. That reminds me. We were on an investigation one time, and I've said this before, and me and one of the guys that were doing the investigating, we had gone upstairs into this building, notoriously known for all this activity. We had gotten a lot of it on film, and we went up there. I said, "Well, let's go take a look around. We haven't been here a while and see what's going on." So we go up there, and I'm just kind of, you know how cameras when you zoom, they well, just like my hands right now, it's not giving you that clear picture.
Yeah, it leaves a trail.
And didn't think anything about it. We Yeah, exactly. So we go back downstairs and we're going back through it and we're looking at it and we were stunned. Stunned. It was a figure exactly like what you would have seen on the movie The Ring. You know, that Asian figure, white with the black hair
Yeah.
hanging down, and it was just standing there and just like grimacing at us. I was like, "Oh my god." I can't believe that was right next to us and we didn't even see it, you know? And I looked over at Stephen. He looks at me and he like, you want to go back up there? And he was like, yeah. So I said, I got to see what this thing is. We go upstairs and it was a fan.
Yeah.
It was just the way that when we had panned the camera over, and I mean, it was almost identical to this grotesque thing standing there in the corner. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's what movies were made of. Something just like that right there.
The imagination
Because it got
is
me in the beginning.
interesting. Oh, absolutely.
It is. Imagination is dangerous. Downright dangerous. Um, so your book, how long ago did you write that book?
It's been a while. It's been a minute. 2015.
Well, you 2015, and that was written together by you and Andrea Perrone, correct?
Yeah, we we were doing a lot of road trips, her and I, during that time. A lot of conferences, a lot of lectures. And on one of our longer trips, coming back, I believe, from possibly Rhode Island, maybe Pennsylvania, but we were heading back. I think it was our Gettysburg trip. In any event, long trip, heading back south, and I began to tell her this story, this idea that I had in my head for better part of
Hmm.
25 years. And at the conclusion of the story in the car, she says, "You've got to write this. You've got to turn this into a book." And I said, "I don't know how to write." She says, "I do. Just, at least get the idea on paper and we can, take from that and build and build and build," which we did. It was an arduous task to get down everything that we wanted to put together. And it was a tooth and nail fight between her and I on the direction. In my mind, I could see it as if it was a motion picture already. So I had visualized the entire story from start to finish. And then when I would hand the pages over to her to edit, there were things she changed. And I'm like, that's not what I'm intending for. And, I thought it was just not going to be a good meeting of the minds at one point in time. But as she would read back through it, she goes, "Damn, George, you were right. I hate to admit it, but you were right. This is much better the way that we're going with this." So, we put it out there in 2015 to incredible reviews. I just wish it was more on the level of volume of sales than the ratings of the sales. But people just, some of it called it the best book they've ever read. Others said, "I can't, I, I can't put it down." I mean, it was just really nice, complimentary stuff about the book. And, I'm very, very, um, pleased with the work. And I wish I can get
Wow.
the patients down to write the follow up. I have a sequel to it as well, but it's a great book. It's you guys have seen it in there in a flicker, and there's Andrea and my pictures on the back. Yeah, and anybody wants to grab it, it's the typical places: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a whole bunch of different places where you can pick it up at. But yeah, a grand adventure, a great story. It's a fictional tale as to why Jack the Ripper was never caught. Oh, yeah, not in the ghost area, not in the ghost area at all.
And the name of the book is In the Flicker. Is that correct?
In a flicker. Here we go. In a flicker. Oh, you froze there a second. Wi-Fi issue, ghost issue, one or the other.
I don't know what is going on with the show tonight. It's just,
At least from what I can see here, my stream is pretty steady. Is it mostly your end, or am I freezing up?
I'm not sure. Oh, I'm sure if there's something going on, George, it's on my end. I next to positive. It's just, it would not shock me at all. I'm trying to. Okay, no, there's nothing there. Okay. Um, well, I have not had an opportunity to read this book, but I want to read this thing. I really want to read it because I've heard amazing things about it.
Uh,
So, is it available on Amazon?
Amazon and Barnes and Noble, a couple other places also. It's been distributed very, very well by our publishers. The Andrea always, when we would go to these conventions and had the books laid out on the table, always gave a bit of a warning saying buy the soft cover so that when you throw it against the wall while you're reading it, you don't break anything. Because it was just one of those things that people would even do it in the comments. You go to the Amazon comments on the book and said, I had to put it down at least 6 or 7 times. It's a very difficult read. Well, it's about a serial killer, a legendary serial killer, Jack the Ripper. So if you're
Yeah,
familiar with
yeah.
him and you understand what he had done, this goes into grave,
Oh, yeah.
macabre details. So, again, just be prepared for it. And the way I always describe the reading style of what it's like, think of a roller coaster. And the first third of the book is this climb, building and building and building. And then once it goes over that first drop, forget it. It's just from that point on, hold on.
Wow, that's fascinating. That really is. But I definitely would, because yes, I'm quite familiar with those stories and that situation. And for years, they thought that they had the the killer. At least that they had a pretty good idea, if I'm not mistaken, of who it was, but they just couldn't quite pin it on him.
In the time it took me to write the book from start to finish, there were two different authors who published two different books on two different people that were definitely Jack the Ripper. It's like, no one knows still to this day. This is all still supposition, and
To this day.
they're going with guesswork. Well, they're doing research, of course, but it comes to two different conclusions. So that's why, in my mind and in this story,
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
third reason why Jack the Ripper was never actually caught.
So basically, what I would say is everybody who's listening out there, um, in a flicker, and definitely pick this book up and take a read on it. I know I'm going to. I'm going to pick this book up, and I want to definitely read into it. Um, we have a someone writes ghosts issues for sale for sure. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah. I mean, this thing is just absolutely amazing. It's the never ending discoveries, the never ending story of this killer, because it's never been solved. And until it's solved, there's really not an ending to it until it's solved. It
no.
just keeps on going.
And the same thing goes for the book. It just continues that never-ending story. It's like I said, it's a unique concept. It just came to me 25 years ago, and I just never did anything with it. And I was very grateful for Andrea to give me the encouragement and the drive and the support in doing this. And again, I'm like a proud father when it comes to it. It's just an
Oh,
amazing,
sure.
amazing creation.
That's wonderful. That really is. And it's definitely piqued a lot of people's interest. And you said that this was what, in 2015?
Yes, 2015. So, like I said, it's coming up on 10 years. I can't believe it.
And it's, yeah, and still it goes. And people are still interested, and people are still reaching out for it. I am. I'm really interested in this book. And I'm encouraging everybody out there that hasn't read it, pick it up. take a read on this. It promises to be a most fascinating book. Um, Something you were talking about it's very similar to what I know exactly what you're talking about. By it's your radio show kind of keeps you in with the paranormal
Right.
community, keeping up with what's going on and everything, even though you're having to do a full-time job and more, taking care of dad. I've recently gone through this. I was a full-time caregiver of my mother,
So you know.
86, and for 3 years, oh, George, I know. Um, 3 years, she moved in with me, and I was with her all the time, right up until September the 28th when I lost her. And boy, I tell you, you don't know how, now I have such a new respect for people when they say, oh, I take care of my parent. High respects to you. High respects. I did it for the 3 years with mom, and it was the toughest job I've ever had to do. And it's one that I look back on now with pride. And I'm so thankful that God gave me the opportunity to be able to be there for my mom. And it's probably one of the proudest things that I've done. Um, I don't regret it for a second. I would do it again 10 times over because it was for my mom. And there was nothing more important than that.
Right.
So, major respect to you, George. Major respect to you. Um, it'll be an adventure. Boy, some of the things that that I dealt with were like, oh my! But we did it anyway. So you think you know a parent until you have to take care of them like that, and then it's like, now I know. So, but yeah, the having spooky things really helped to keep me connected when I felt so totally disconnected and so far away from, something that I really enjoyed and loved. And once a week, I could reconnect and still gain connections from outside through spooky things. And I'm so grateful for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I guess more than anything else,
do
what
you?
good, you had a question? I think we have a delay going on
No,
here.
no, go ahead. We do. Yeah.
Slight. Okay, yeah, well, we'll try and work through that. But yeah, it's well, I'll tell you, after years and years and years and years and years of being a field investigator, having the privilege, the opportunity of traveling to some of the most historically haunted locations in the country, having to work with some of the most notable individuals in this field. Um, it's been a wild ride, but there comes a time, and it's funny because when you start out with maybe a flashlight, a camera, and a digital audio recorder. And you get out there for others who've been doing this longer, they were doing cassette tapes. But for me, it was just at the dawn of the digital audio recorder. So going out and doing the investigations, so you start off with maybe those three primary things. And then as you invest your time into this field, you begin to invest money into this field, whether it's for travel expenses or equipment. And eventually you wind up with 8, 9, 10, 12 uh, cameras that hook up to a main recording system that's at home base, and then you have your handheld cameras. Now you've got 6 or 7 recorders that you never really even consider the fact that when you have to do evidence review, that's 6 or 7 times however many hours that you were investigating. So you don't really, in
Yep.
retrospect, you think one or share it with the group. But I was very controlling when I still had a group of my own and wanted to do all the review myself, so nothing was missed, and caught some amazing things over the years. But over time, you start to whittle back down again. It's very fascinating how you started, you go there, and now you're
Right.
reducing back down again. Because I think at a point in time where you've already had enough experience to say there is spirit phenomena, unquestionably the spirit phenomena. So I don't need to capture it. Plus the jaded internet that if you put anything out there, somebody's ready to just tear it down. No one is going to believe it, or
Yes.
they're going to come up with a debunking mentality to do it. And it's and
Right.
you can't go after them because they weren't there when you're there. And that's the funny thing. You're
Right.
never a believer until you experience it. And once you experience it, that cannot be taken away from you, that personal experience. So a lot of the times when I would go out,
Right.
maybe I bring a recorder, definitely bring a flashlight so I don't kill myself, and would find myself just experiencing locations. I did that at oh gosh, the one in Pennsylvania that I'm drawing a blank on right now. It'll come back to me here in a second, but Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was another one. Running up and down the halls at the Stanley Hotel, Eastern State Penitentiary. I didn't carry a bunch of equipment at that point in time. I was just enjoying the vibe, enjoying the energy, enjoying the experience. And I think that's getting back to the grassroots of what we do. If we were going to go with a bunch of people, now we talked about the Conjuring House, but a large group of people come in and they're all going to be carrying their backpack with all this equipment. And unfortunately, you're talking about at that point contamination, when you're doing audio work or anything of that sort. Um,
Right.
it detracts from the experience. At Trans Allegheny, the most impactful experience that I had was with a mother and her son, and he had just graduated from high school, and he wanted desperately to go to Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. That was his graduation present from his mom, and they were there that night. We were host investigators, if you will. We had been asked by Rebecca Gleason to come up from Florida because they had a group coming in, and they had a couple of other celebrities that were supposed to be there that canceled, and said, "Would you be willing to do this? You don't have to pay to be here for this." And we went, "Oh, we're on our way. Free? Are you kidding me? As expensive as some of these places are." So we went.
Oh, yeah.
There was only 3 of us from the group at that point in time, but uh, we went to the old military ward, and that's where Lily supposedly hung out. And we went into this room, fairly small room, typical size of a normal 2-car garage. And there was about 8 to 10 of us that were in there. And I started doing this simple process of standing at one end of the room, everyone was at the far end, and walking with my arms out, and you could begin to feel the cobwebs sensation. If you've ever had that, you know what I'm talking about. And that cobweb sensation in an
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
immaculate room. And so once I said I could detect that, I had the sun go against that wall and do the same exact movement, and it produced the same exact result. And you want to say that it made his entire trip worth it. He enjoyed it so spectacularly. It's those personal experiences that are paramount to either an investigator or an experiencer. It has to be
Yeah.
that one on one. Forget about when you play that back on a recorder and you go, oh, it's incredible. When you hear a disembodied voice or scream or cry, there's
Mhm.
nothing like it.
It's true. It is true. I think one of the first experiences that I had with a really, I mean, an amazingly crystal clear disembodied voice was at a hotel that we go to. And one of the little girls said, "Hello," just like that. "Hello," just as clear as a bell. And it's like she was standing right in front of us. That was the clearest one that I think I had ever gotten, just that one word that just made it for me. It really did. I was like, I never thought that I'd get something that clear. And it was such a sweet little voice too, having a little one do it. Um, in review of going back through film, we didn't even know it was there when we were filming it. And this was at another place. And when we ended up, I was laying in bed one morning and I thought, gee, I didn't look through this particular time. And I thought, let me go ahead. And I'm just laying here. Let me just go ahead and go back through that. And I did. And lo and behold, there was like, I forget, it was like 3 or 4 shadows rose from the ground, the floor of this old building that we were sitting in, rose up from the floor and ran off. And it was like 3 or 4 shadows of children doing that. I'm like, oh my God, we never caught it until I sat there reviewing that particular one, laying in bed the next morning. It's like, it's so imperative that you go through that because so many important things that you're going to find that you had absolutely no idea was there. And that was one of the biggest finds that night. Glad we caught that. But, so it's a boring job, because you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, you got to go through all of this. But if you don't go through it very carefully, you're going to miss those little things that mean a lot at the
Right.
end.
Yes.
Um, we've had some really fantastic things that we've come across. One thing that we got, George, was something that was really disturbing. Um, we had we had it on SLS, and it was something I had never seen before, and I've never seen anything since. But it was an actual rape occurring on SLS. It was very visual, extraordinarily visual. And it's like one of those things you just keep looking at, you look around the SLS like, what? What? No, that can't, no.
Right.
And it was. It's something, I was shocked. The whole team was dumbfounded of what we were watching, but it was extraordinarily obvious of what was occurring. And I never really thought that would be something that you would ever pick up. We sure did.
Right.
So I hope I never come across that again, you know. But you don't know you just don't know what you're going to find. You have
Correct.
no idea what you're going to come across,
Right.
and my gosh. What would you think is the most bizarre thing that you ever caught? Because you've gone to a lot of these really amazing places. What would you say would be the most amazing thing, even bizarre thing that you caught?
Gosh. Well, I could tell you it's somewhat of an education outside of the realm of the paranormal when it comes to the debunking part. Case in point, now I remember the location I was trying to figure out earlier, Penhurst Asylum. and we had gone to investigate Penhurst. And again, that
Mm,
people were kind
mm.
enough to open the doors to Andrea Perrin and myself and a few other friends. Well, actually, her and I met them up there, but we drove on our own from Gettysburg. And while we were there, you heard the most blood curdling screams when we were on the second floor of the building. And we got back to home base because we couldn't find out where it was coming from. And then we were told by the people who work there, the employees and the staff and the owners, that that's the sound that foxes make. And it was just a blood curdling
Oh,
scream type sound. So you sit there and you go, how many other people who have been there who didn't inquire simply heard through with their own ears this blood curdling scream going on? And it was foxes mating in the woods just outside. But how quickly that can evolve to an actual paranormal experience. But to your question, to this day, I'll never say anything is comparable to this. And there's been a lot of different experiences that I had that just sends chills up my spine still. But it was at Rolling Hills Asylum. We became very good friends with the owner, Sharon Coyle, because we were the first ones to petition to get into this place and investigate as soon as she took it over. So new that she didn't know the monetary gain of these haunted locations and just allowed us in for free, an entire night for free. And it was like incredible.
wow.
But in doing the investigation, the first time it was freezing cold. I had driven for 20 hours. I was shot. So, but we still collected great evidence. And it was a year or so later, she invited me back up for a event she was having at her property. And I was there with her for the whole weekend. And it was the last night, and there was maybe eight of us still awake, alive at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we're in one of the hallways, and I'm sitting in the trigger object known as a wheelchair to see whether or not that would activate anything. And I must have been 20, 30 feet in front of everyone else who was gathered around the desk, and maybe 30 yards in front of me down the hallway, long hallways. Uh, I see this. The only way you can picture is picture somebody who dipped themselves into crude oil and then crawled along the floor. It came out of one of the infirmaries on the floor crawling, but similar to, as you spoke
Oh,
about the
wow.
Japanese movies, but The Grudge, and just this jotting movement as it's crawling out. And
Mm-hmm.
it only got out as far as its waist. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. And I got up and ran at it. As soon as I got out of that wheelchair and started booking, it went backwards in that same motion back into the room. I was absolutely sure I lost my mind. I'm tired. It's 4 a.m. Disbelief, and I run into there
Right?
and turn the flashlight on. And I'm looking to the left, and it's got the typical hospital bed. It's got the little curtain divider next to that. You know, it's set up like an
Mm-hmm.
old school infirmary, but I look nothing anywhere to this day. To this day, I regret the fact that it did not click into my head that these things are called shadow crawlers, and they crawl notoriously on the ceiling. And I never looked up with my flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
And
Looked up.
once I ran out of there, I ran down the stairs right next to it to see if maybe somebody had just been playing a prank. Somebody in the area there was nobody anywhere. And when I came back up, that's when there was another person with us that was sitting on the floor next to me as I was in the wheelchair. She goes, I saw it and I couldn't say anything. I was frozen for what I was seeing. So at least I had
So
somebody to
scared.
substantiate what it was that I experienced, but never had come across anything like that since Um, but I'd be interested to. I'd be interested to experience that. No harm, no foul, you know. But it was amazing.
Right. And it's interesting because we experienced something very similar to that. And like you, we didn't look with our eyes up on the ceiling, but on the SLS, we actually caught. I've always called it a minion because obviously it was not human in any way, but it crawled up a pipe right in front of us. It crawled up this pipe. From the pipe, it went poop onto the ceiling and then started crab crawling across the ceiling. And we're following it with the SLS.
Wow.
But like what you're saying, I was so intrigued by the SLS, I didn't bother to pull the SLS away and look up just by looking with my eyes up. And now I wish I did
Sure. Sure.
because it would have been interesting, you know, especially after
Exactly.
you bring it up. It's like, oh, missed opportunity there.
Yeah. And that's what keeps you hooked.
Yeah, missed a great opportunity there. It is. It is. It's like it never tells the whole story, just enough to keep you coming back for the round 2 or round 20 or 25. You know, it's just that curiosity. It's like, oh, I gotta go look. I just gotta go look. Probably, probably going to get me in such big trouble one day.
Absolutely.
Um, it's interesting that you were saying that before we used to use a lot of equipment. I find that today I like to go without a lot of equipment. I would much rather go with just like a recorder to catch things and using the sensitivity that I was born with by picking things up and knowing what I'm looking for in my mind. And my senses will pick it up. And that's what I kind of gravitate towards. But yeah, a lot of times it's just for me the best to go in, just me, like definitely a flashlight, but the minimal that I can. And it's just like what I was saying with the SLS. I was so involved with that SLS picking it up. I didn't I didn't see it with my own eyes. I just saw it through the SLS. Missed opportunity. So, you know, I think that if you rely too much on the equipment, you're losing out sometimes so much more
Right.
because you're relying on that equipment too much. You got to rely on yourself, what you've experienced, the experience that you have, and of what you're really going for.
Now,
You get better results.
what really makes it
I think so.
hard is just like everything else we were talking about, like the marketing of the Conjuring House, the marketing of the equipment. They are designed with all these lights and all these noises, the bells and whistles. And, when you've taken that time, as you spoke of before, sitting on a cold concrete slab with your recorder in the dark, turn your flashlight off, and you go through your questions, whether they be mundane or interesting, whatever, it's still a long process. But when you've got millimeters set up everywhere and EMF detectors everywhere, and you've got your SLS camera, and you've got your echo box, and you've got your Radio Shack, and now it's just a cacophony of noise. It just all kind of blends in together, but it
Right.
keeps you alert and excited. But what opportunities could possibly be missed during that exploration of technology when the best technology that you have is yourself, is your own brain and your own eyes and your own ears. And that seems to be, I'm not going to say that it is a lost art because thankfully there are still people out there who get it, but it's hard when you're constantly being bombarded.
Hmm.
Even on the television shows, they're all using all this. Well, we've got this new sophisticated equipment, and it will detect if there's any type of footsteps in the room. And great, I'd like to hear them. Forget about this detector. I want to
I'd like
hear
to
them.
hear it.
We got the SLS camera or the FLIR camera that'll show. I want to see it. I don't. Again, no matter what I
Want
put
to
out
see
there,
it.
it's if it's any type of instrumental capture, and then you provide that instrumental capture to society, it's it doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't. People are just going to say, "Oh, that's interesting.
You're
Okay,
right.
cool, nice catch." You have a personal experience, or somebody hears your story and you say, "You got to come out." And that's another topic for another time too. Is that spirit is all around us. It's not just at historically haunted locations. It's not just at graveyards. It's not just at crash sites. They're everywhere. They're omnipresent. We've
They're
seen
everywhere.
experiences and examples
Yep.
of that far too often. You just got to reach out and touch them, so to speak, get to talk to them, and they'll communicate back with you. But not saying, as people are always warned, don't do it in your home. You don't have to. You can do it in the backyard. You're safe. Don't worry about it. I've done it before. But bottom line of it is that you can then invite those people that you tell them these experiences in hopes that they will experience something similar to what it is that you have presented to them in your story versus look at this equipment, look at these examples on this, and they go, "What am I looking at? I have no idea." Visually, with their
Right.
own senses, picking up things, that's something you can't take away.
Oh, I agree. A lot of people that just start out, they're like, well, what do you think would be the best equipment? Yourself. That's your best equipment. It's yourself. And, go minimally and don't come to me when all that is going on. I'm distracted. I can't help but, these lights are flashing and this is beeping over. Turn the beeping down. I can't hear what's going on with all that beeping going on. That drives me nuts. I,
What is
I
the
don't particularly
difference?
like it.
What I mean,
Um,
seriously, what is the difference between putting EMF meters at the end of the hallway that you see a lot of people do now? And if it goes off, then we know that there's energy in the area, so we're going to go down there and check it out. You get down to that end, what happens? The other meter starts going off. Oh, well, now it's
the
on
other
the
one,
other end. Now we're going to go down there. What is the difference between that and taking out all that equipment and you just hear that knock knock? What did that sound come from? I don't know. Let's go down that way. Now
hmm
it's knocking down the other end. The meters are not doing anything above and beyond what we can experience just by being there. Simple answer.
right, right. I agree. I totally agree. Um, and well, just like I was saying, with that one experience in particular, I was distracted by the equipment. We picked it up, but I was so involved in the equipment, I lost track of what it was that I was actually trying to learn. And because of my attachment to that piece of equipment, I lost valuable experiences that I could have had that a piece of equipment not been there. And as you get a little bit older, George, I might just be speaking from my experience here. I just, I'm like, just let me go in there. Let me see what I can Let me see what I can do here. I would like to pick up as much as I can first. Then you can kind of clue me in on some of I might ask you about some things or stuff like that as we're doing it. But first let me go in and let me just kind of feel it out for myself. Then I'll start asking the questions. What about this? What about this? Well, tell me about, but I want to get a feel for it first. I know a lot of people want to be clued in on everything before they go in there. I don't. I like kind of try. It's like a puzzle. I kind of want to figure it out myself.
What we did, again, nothing recorded, and I didn't care. But we were at a group of us together, and we were at a conference, and part of that conference was to go out to this particular location, plantation, wherever it was. I know it was up north, and there was a young lady that was attending, also was a friend I knew, and we stepped away from the house. We stepped away from the group. We stepped away from uh, the staff that worked inside, and we're sitting in the yard. And I did something with her, and I've done it before, and I'll probably do it again. That is, I've basically given it the nomenclature of collective consciousness. That we are all connected, living, dead, we're all connected. And in this particular example, an experiment, I had her close her eyes. I said, and I want you to take some deep breaths. And the first thing that I want you to do is tell me your name. And I counted to three, and she told me not her name, but somebody else's name. Okay, I want you to keep your eyes closed and look down. What kind of a dress are you wearing? I'm wearing a white dress. I'm sitting on a swing, but like one of the swings that adults would swing on, two ropes coming down from the tree with a heart seat. And how many children do you have? I have three children. And we're going through all of this just on the spot, impromptu. And then finally, one of the tourist guides were coming out for a smoke break, and I called them over. And I said, what was the name of the woman of the house that lived there? Same name as what she gave. How many children did she have? Three. What did their husband do for a living? And it was sequentially across the board. We did this also at the May Stringer house down here in Florida with another uh, victim, another volunteer. Same exact thing. Same exact thing. So we are connected,
Wow.
but the problem of it is a lot of the times is we get these visions in our head, just like when we have dreams of places we've never been to, but the detail is so unbelievably uh, down to the smallest little detail
Mhm.
that you sit there, but you still kind of discard it, and you wonder whether or not there are crossovers going on there. I believe they are.
Oh, I believe you. You're right. I have detailed dreams that I have very often. And it's like I live another life altogether when I go to sleep and I dream. I don't know these people. I don't know these homes. I don't know this area, but yet I can tell you where everything is. And everything is familiar to me. The people are familiar, the houses are familiar, but I have no idea of what they are. When I wake up, I have no idea who these people or places are, but I'm very familiar with them when I'm in the dream. And the interesting thing is that they carry on
Yeah.
every night. And
What
it's
what's
just it's the weirdest thing to me.
what still intrigues me, and science hasn't caught up yet, or science doesn't care at this point in time, which to me I think is absolutely ignorant and foolish because tapping into this is critical. And I think that at one point in time in the existence of man, there were certain groups, certain societies, certain generations that did understand and tap into this. But I think it's fascinating that there are people out there who simply don't dream. Not they dream, they remember certain things, but they forget. I do that too, but simply don't dream. More so, there are people out there that are afflicted with a certain condition called aphantasia. Aphantasia are individual people who have no imagination, literally, no imagination. You tell somebody, I want you to picture yourself on the moon standing there looking at Earth. They can't do it. They have no capability. The only thing that they can refer back to is actual experiences, but they can't break from that. They can't create a new dimension, a new linear way of thinking other than fact of the matter. And you wonder whether or not that comes from, the brain waves or it comes from the soul. But to not have the ability to dream, or need the ability to dream, it depends on which way you want to flip flop look at it, or have the ability for imagination at all, is incomprehensible to me. But they exist. I know people that
Right.
are like that. Tremendous, tremendous to try to explore that and the reasons why that happens in some rather than others.
I can't even imagine that. Because my dreams are so vivid, and like every night. A lot of times I don't remember them, but I know that I had them. I know that I've dreamt. Or I wake up and I'm like, oh, it was a dream. And I tend to discard it. But to me, it's like just another day over there. Nothing really. It's not even things that are, hmm, I would say, striking, something that you remember. It's just an average day. It's just doing what goes on there. So I tend to dismiss that. Maybe I shouldn't. But I could not imagine going to sleep at night and not having that.
Right.
That's, I don't know. That to me is almost terrible. Do you ever have you ever been able to get a feeling about something that is getting ready to occur and have it occur?
No, I've never had any gift of precognition.
No?
No, never had anything like that whatsoever. And I again, I imagine that there are people who do have that ability, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, because there may be some good points to it, but there's got to be something in the back of their head saying, when is that bad one going to happen? But for me, never. Too grounded, I think. I think
Yep.
that's my problem.
Oh, yeah, that could be. Um, yeah, I've been able to do that since I was a kid. Um, it's just, but again, that's where dreams come in. A lot of that comes in dream time. Yeah. Well, you being from that area, you would know this situation. Um, I woke up, I was in a horrible sweat, and I was like, oh, this is one of the worst dreams I've ever had. I said, but it's just so unlikely that it would ever occur. I don't see how this could ever occur. And I said, I just had a dream that a plane crash. I watched it crash. I, I saw it as it came around and it went into the ground, but it never made a sound. How can a plane crash and never make a sound? And it had me bewildered how that could occur. And I thought, well, it's just a strange dream. And it was a few days later that we heard that a plane had gone down in the Everglades. And I mean, it was buried, but nobody heard it. It did not make a sound. And yeah, the people at the time that knew me were like, "How on earth did you do?" I said, "I just came in a dream." It's just, and unfortunately, a lot of things that I have, I don't interpret them correctly. I haven't been able to really zero in on the interpretation of some things. I look at it in hindsight, and it's like, ah, there it was. Well, a lot of good it does me now.
Exactly.
But I knew about it before. I just didn't know how to interpret it at that time. So, again, missed opportunities. So you always kind of look at it in the hindsight. And it's like, Dad, burn it. Maybe next time. But I don't know. It's one thing that I've never been able to cue in on really good.
Exactly.
I don't know. And I think that if I'm a firm believer in this, if it is something that you were really meant to explore deeper, you would have that inner urge to learn more. It's a yearning that you have. I need to do this. I need to figure this out. And I never really, even after all the experiences that I had, oh yeah, I knew that beforehand, but I've never really had that urge to really dig into it. Whereas the other things that I'm able to do, it's because I've worked on them all my life, and I've cultivated it, and I've let it grow, and I've understood it more, and I feel more at home with that. Whereas that I didn't. Maybe it's, maybe it's because I didn't really like it. So
Possible.
I stick to what I know. I stick to what I like. Yeah. So
Hey,
I get in enough trouble with what I have. I don't need to cultivate more trouble for myself.
yeah, life's too short.
So, but George, I sure have enjoyed the time being with you here on the show. Um,
Thank you.
I definitely want to stress to everybody, please pick up that book. I know that I'm going to pick it up, and I am going to definitely give it a good read. I would love to talk more to you about that in particular, after I'm able to pick that book up and really read it. And I would really like to pick your brain a little bit more about that. That's
Well,
fascinating, absolutely fascinating for me. And
after you
everybody
read the
is
book,
called
you
In
might
a
not want to
Flicker.
talk to me.
It's okay, George. I didn't know anybody back then. Anything's game.
So, well, thank you for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it.
So, absolutely. We would love to talk to you again in the near future. And thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And
Thank you.
thank you so very much. I would like to remind everybody also about the Paracomic-Con that's coming up on October the 5th and 6th. Are you going to go to that, George?
Again,
The Deep South Paracomic-Con?
I'm kind of confined
Oh,
to
you're
home.
you're going to be busy.
Yeah,
You're going to be busy.
always taking care of Pop.
Yeah. Oh,
It's okay.
so
Uh,
much respect, George.
I'll
Um,
catch the highlights on YouTube. I'm sure.
oh yeah. And well, for everybody, it's on October the 5th and the 6th, and amazing things are lined up. And Stan and Teresa from the Webb Paranormal Group are putting this on, and they're coming up with all kinds of neat things to do. So, this is Debbie with Spooky Things signing off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in with Mr. George Lopez. It was fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
And we'll see everybody again. Good night. We'll see everybody again next Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Good night.